Did you? Thank you. So again, we are always welcome here at ANJAC to hear your comments and suggestions for other roundtables, for other ideas, anything you want to talk about. We'd love to hear you. I gave you my email address, but the email address for our general voicemail is info@anjac.org. You can email us anytime. You may get some answers at weird times of the day because we are all still pretty much working remotely. So email is definitely the best way to reach us. Every now and then somebody goes into the office to make sure our building is still standing, but we are definitely functioning pretty well remotely, and we will continue to do so to keep people safe. So welcome. A little bit about ANJAC for those that may be the first time coming to one of our workshops or webinars. We were founded in 1969. At the time, the Environmental Commission enabling state legislation was signed in New York, which is, you'll see that chapter 40:56A of the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law. I can never say that right. The mission of ANJAC is to achieve responsible and sustainable use of New Jersey's natural resources and protection of environmental health. We are a 501c3 charity, no government funding. Funding sources are private foundations, corporations, businesses, individual supporters, and of course, our municipal memberships is our wonderful, which most of you are, and we welcome you as always. A few information about some of our core programs. You are now participating in our new, for 2022, bi-monthly Environmental Commission roundtables. They are all recorded and on our YouTube channel, in case you missed some. And we are excited that this has really been popular, and I expect that we may continue this in 2023. So we have planned so far to do 6 in 2022, and so far it seems like it's working out, and we like to give you guys a chance to really share and converse. That was the idea of these roundtables. So our annual Environmental Congress is another big one that we always do. We are, for the first time in a couple of years, going to have an in-person session on Friday, October 14th, but we are still going to have virtual sessions earlier that week leading up to the in-person for those that maybe not want to come in person, or maybe some people want to do both. So we can do a hybrid this year. Another of our annual programs that we do is the Fundamentals for Effective Environmental Commissions. That runs in March, and it's sort of at a time when usually people are getting newly appointed to the environmental commissions, and it's time to sort of get the basic training on how to be a good environmental commission and maybe have some idea of what it is you got yourself into. So another thing that ANJAC offers every year, and so far we expect to continue that, we offer open space stewardship grants for environmental commissions run through by the Environmental Commission. And indeed, a lot of these projects are similar to, you could certainly use money to create a wildlife habitat. So if you keep that in mind this evening, if you're thinking about maybe you want to try to do one of these in your town, you may be able to get some funding from ANJAC. Those grants are announced early in the year, like in January, and the applications are due in the spring. And then pretty quickly so you can start your work in the early summer, and you have a year to complete the work. Those grants right now at least have a maximum award of $1,500, but there is no match required. All that's required is a certain number of volunteer hours. So that's exciting. Another thing you might want to know is some of the other things that we work on our daily, working with other colleagues and other environmental organizations. ANJAC coordinates the Environmental Summit. We work on the Delaware River Watershed Initiative. We are part of Jersey Waterworks. We're a member of Earthshare New Jersey. We work with Flood Defense New Jersey. New Jersey No Plastics is an ANJAC and other colleague nonprofits initiative. We are members of the New Jersey Highlands Coalition. We work on the Landscape Makeover Project, and we are founding members of the South Jersey Bay Shore Coalition. So if any questions about any of those things, or you'd like to get involved, just let us know. Here's a picture of some of our activities. You can see this was actually Senator Weinberg and a Girl Scout from Teaneck with a plastic bag. It was called the Plastic Monster. And these other two pictures are actually some pictures of some grant projects, as you see native plants going in, or trail markers with educational signs and habitat in towns. And here is another picture of people planting a rain garden, and indeed the signs. These again are some things that you may be able to use an ANJAC grant for if you ever were interested. So So I'm so thrilled to have with us tonight, Kristen Hock. She's a Habitat Outreach Coordinator at New Jersey Audubon, and Kylie Balin. She's a member of the Mendum Township Environmental Commission here in Morris County. So I will let Kristen start sharing, and we're so glad you guys are with us. Thank you. You ladies are with us. Sorry.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, can you see my screen?
Indeed, we can. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Again, my name is Kristen Hock, Habitat Outreach Coordinator for New Jersey Audubon. I have a background in wildlife biology, environmental education. I was an organic vegetable farmer for a few years, and now I teach about wildlife gardening. So New Jersey Audubon is an environmental nonprofit throughout the state of New Jersey. So we are separate from National Audubon. That kind of sometimes is confusing to folks, understandably so. But we are a separate nonprofit, but we do work on the same conservation issues. We just focus on state level. We have a few nature centers and unstaffed sanctuaries throughout the state. So plenty of places to go hiking. So you could check out njaudubon.org for any hiking opportunities near you. We also have great programs at our nature centers, summer camps, nature programs. So a lot of things to do and are offered throughout the state. We have 6 departments: education, research, stewardship, government relations, finance, and development. So I work for education and stewardship. I teach about gardening, and then I also maintain one of the New Jersey Audubon properties as part of the stewardship staff. And New Jersey Audubon is made up of our members as well. So hopefully some of you are members and are involved in our organization. We, love the support and can't continue doing what we do without our supportive members. So in 2012, New Jersey Audubon became the state affiliate for the National Wildlife Federation. And so we worked together with them on a program that they developed. So it's a nationwide program. And then I work on it statewide, encouraging folks to become a certified wildlife habitat. So in New Jersey, we have almost 9,000 certified wildlife habitats. And then there's also a program where whole communities can become certified as well. We have 5 certified communities and 17 registered communities. That means that they're working towards becoming certified. And I'm going to go into how to do both of those programs throughout this presentation. So being on environmental commissions, I'm sure you know the perils of the earth right now, so I won't need to go too far into this. Just knowing that, the species are declining, both wildlife and plants, for a number of reasons. Something like invasive species, plants that are harmful invaders that degrade natural habitats across the country, really has an effect on our habitats, and then that has an effect on our wildlife. And we have a continually changing landscape throughout the country. There's over 50,000 square miles of lawn in the US. So about 6 times the area of New Jersey is just lawn across the country. And 85% of US residents live in an urban or suburban environment. So lawn and suburban or urban environments usually mean not the best wildlife habitat. And 30% of New Jersey's 5 million acres of land is considered urban. So again, pretty difficult for wildlife to live in those spaces unless we do things to help wildlife, such as songbirds and pollinators. So lawn is a biological wasteland. East of the Mississippi, most of our nation's biodiversity is found, while most of the protected areas are found out west. So when you think of our national park system, most of the parks are out west, and you think of grizzly bears and wolves and the really big animals. But we actually have more biodiversity out east because biodiversity also counts as insects. And I'm sure if you all are from the area, you know that we have a plethora of insects out here. So 86% of land is privately owned, 90% is in lawn, and 80% of plants and yards are non-native. So all these facts and figures really mean that we are not managing our properties to be friendly to wildlife. The habitats get fragmented. So when habitats are fragmented, wildlife survival rate decreases. So say if that top picture in the top left corner, there's essentially two different habitats separated, there's nothing connecting them. So if you're a box turtle trying to get from point A to point B and you have no food, water, cover in between, then your success rate would be significantly decreased. But as you connect habitat with higher connectivity, then the success rate of wildlife increases significantly, because they'll have a place to eat, a place to find water, a place to find some rest while they are moving about. So our goal is to increase habitat connectivity in the community. And to do that, we promote gardening, and specifically gardening with native plants. So the National Wildlife Federation began their Garden for Wildlife program in 1973, recognizing that plants are the foundation of the food web in any ecosystem. And then the insects are the next critical level of the food web. And knowing that 90% of insects that rely on plants can only survive on plants which they've evolved. So mainly young insects or larvae are specialist eaters, so they could really only eat a small percentage of plants or very specific plants. So the most common example is the monarch, which is pictured here on milkweed. Monarch caterpillars can only eat milkweed. So if we don't have milkweed, then we won't have monarchs. So that's why that statistic is so high, because most insect young can only eat certain things because they are specialist eaters. Native plants are here before Europeans. They're adapted to local soils, local precipitation. They're resilient and hardy once established, and they directly support wildlife because they have evolved together. So if you look at a native oak species, they can be the host plant for over 500 species of caterpillar. So that means that moths and butterflies will seek out oak trees, native oak trees, to lay their eggs on, and then their eggs would hatch, and then the caterpillars would eat the oak leaves. And this is a good thing. So having holes in your garden proves that you are providing habitat for wildlife. So it's not a bad thing to have holes in your leaves. And then when nature is in balance, the caterpillars are not going to decimate your oak tree, because then the birds will come along and eat the caterpillars. Not all of them, so that some of them will then grow to be adults, but the birds will be able to keep the population in control. So native oak species support hundreds of species of caterpillars, as compared to a non-native ginkgo that doesn't support any caterpillars. So if you were gonna plant a tree and your only options were ginkgo and a native oak, and you wanna provide habitat for wildlife, then the option is very easy to make with the native oak. And wildlife need native plants to survive. Again, they've co-evolved. So a lot of insects, their mouth parts or their proboscis or their mouth parts that are made for drinking nectar and or getting pollen, it has been able to evolve into getting into certain areas of the flowers. So how do you start with supporting wildlife, specifically pollinators and songbirds? A great way is to become a certified wildlife habitat. So to do so, you have to provide resources for wildlife. And so that's 3 sources of food, 1 source of water, 2 places of cover, 2 places to raise young, and using sustainable practices. So for food, it would be either in the form of native plants that offers leaves, seeds, berries, nuts, fruits, nectar, or sap, or in the form of supplemental feeders like bird feeders, squirrel feeders, hummingbird feeders, or butterfly feeders, or it could be a combination of the two. So again, you would need 3 sources of food to meet the food recommendation. So you can have 2 native plants and a hummingbird feeder, or all 3 native plants or all 3 bird feeders like that bottom picture, any combination of the 2. And when we say provide habitat, provide food and resources for wildlife, we're really talking about pollinators and songbirds. So we're not encouraging feeding raccoons or possum or fox. So specifically targeting pollinators and songbirds. And then have to order or offer 1 source of water. So a bird bath is usually the most common. Maybe you are lucky enough to have a pond or a stream in your backyard, or a seasonal or vernal pool. Some folks put in a butterfly puddling area, which is really you're just scratching up some soil and making it moist for the butterflies to drink from, and maybe even have a natural spring in your yard. So water can be also just a small, shallow dish, because insects need water sources as well to drink from. And if you're gonna offer water for insects, it's really important to have landing stones in the dish so that they don't fall in and drown. And then cover is really important. A place to rest, a place to hide from predators, or if you are a predator, a place to hide from your prey, because nature, you know, that's the way nature works. You can have a wooded area, ground cover, a rock pile, roosting box, dense shrubs, evergreens, or a brush or log pile like pictured here. And this log pile is on one of our nature preserves with New Jersey Audubon, and we see garter snakes going in there and some other critters, chipmunks and things like that. So it's really cool to see different wildlife using it. And plants provide places to hide and protect young. So a lot of us have heard the saying, if you care, leave them there. Where on the left-hand picture, you see a fawn amongst some vines, and mama deers will drop their babies off in a covered area to go out and forage and then come back and get their babies. So we need dense areas so that the babies can hide while the moms are out foraging for themselves. And then places to raise young. So mature trees is a great option. That way you could put up either nesting boxes, or they can just have holes in them from woodpeckers that act as places to build nests. Host plants for caterpillars, again, like the monarch and the milkweed. Dead trees or snags, if it's a safe area to do so. Dense shrubs or a thicket or a burrow. And plants provide places to raise young as well. So this is why native plants are really important, because they not only offer food, but they offer cover and places to raise young. And then using sustainable practices. So water conservation is a great option for using a sustainable practice. So putting down mulch, using drip irrigation, collecting rainwater, keeping cats indoors because they are not native to our country or even our continent. And they really do wreak havoc on our wildlife species. And other options are composting your kitchen scraps, and also reducing or eliminating any chemical fertilizers or pesticides. So why do you want to create a certified wildlife habitat? In 2012, a study was done that showed that certified wildlife habitats provide more abundant and higher quality habitat for wildlife compared to non-certified yards. So there was grad students that went to a neighborhood and they studied the certified wildlife habitats, all the creatures that visited there, and then went to the neighbors' yards that were not certified, and they, compared the results, and they were able to find that the certified habitats have better habitat for wildlife for them to visit and get the resources necessary for survival. So it's very easy to become certified. It's $20 one-time fee through National Wildlife Federation. And then any address for New Jersey, we get credit for, so they'll send us the list of how many habitats we have throughout the year in the state of New Jersey. So benefits to becoming certified: you get a year membership to National Wildlife Federation, as well as their magazine, which is really great, full of pictures and stories and information about gardening, which is helpful. You get a percentage off of their merchandise, as well as their monthly e-newsletter that has gardening tips, wildlife stories, and other resources. So if you do become certified, you get this paper certificate on the left that's co-branded with New Jersey Audubon and National Wildlife Federation. And then you have an option of purchasing a metal sign to put in your yard. That is the photo on the right, again, co-branded between our two organizations working together promoting this program. So you can certify any outdoor space. So any home, workplace, library, school or university, apartment, rooftop, patio or balcony, place of worship, and even whole communities such as a town, HOA, or a neighborhood. So there is a $20 fee for becoming certified, but for schools, that fee is waived. So if anybody knows any school gardens that might be interested, you can let them know that they can become certified and they don't have to pay that $20. So now I'll switch gears into the community aspect of it. So what I just explained is for individual properties to become certified. So now we'll talk about community wildlife habitats. So nationwide, there's 144 certified and 130 registered. So registered means that they have gone online and filled out the paperwork saying that they will be working towards the certification. So they'll be working towards gaining the points in order to become certified. So Houston, Texas became the 100th community wildlife habitat in 2017. And even though that's halfway across the country from us, I do like to mention them because they have a population of 2.3 million and they were able to do this certification. So it's definitely doable. To become a community, you use National Wildlife Federation's proven program framework to engage citizens. You earn national recognition. You meet your community sustainability goals. You get support from National Wildlife Federation as well as New Jersey Audubon. They have a great resource center with a lot of different resources to use for your community and a great way to track your progress. So to become certified, you have to certify a certain number of individual properties within your community based on population, and then also engage your community members in education and outreach. So on this slide, you'll see it's kind of backwards. It really should be the other way around, but you would find out what your population is for your town and then see how many certification points you need. So let's just say your town is 1,010 people. So that puts you between the 1,001 to 5,000. So you would need 100 habitat certification points. So to get those points, we're going to the left again. For every home certified, including townhomes and apartments, it's 1 point. For every common area, it's 3 points. And for every school or nature center, it's 5 points. So, so you would need a combination of all of those to meet that 100-point goal. So if you have 100 individual homes certified, then you get that goal. If you have, a bunch of homes, a few common areas, and then a school or two to add together to get to that 100. So it's a variety of ways that you can get that number. And then any home that's been certified for 15 years or sooner, it's automatically generated. So any home, so if your community does decide to do this project, this program, any property within your zip codes of your town that is certified within the past 15 years automatically gets generated into a list. So most towns already start with a few points. But if the homes are certified longer than 15 years, then there just need to be verified. So we don't suggest like knocking on people's doors, but if you go out and do education and outreach and somebody says, oh, I certified in 1970, and you can ask like, oh, do you still live at that address? Do you mind if I, write your address down, and then your point, I'll reach out to NWF, and then your home will be counted towards our points. And then there's education and outreach points. So it's all laid out for you here, and you get to pick and choose how you want to gain those points depending on the goal. So registration goals. So the first line saying name your NWF Community Wildlife Habitat Project, you get 5 points for that. Outreach goals, you need 50 points required. So the first one listed under there, improve your community's weed ordinances or other public policies to make them more wildlife friendly. So 10 points for that. So you would have to do, a few different one of these different activities to then add up to that 50 points for outreach or 40 for registration. And then there's education goals. So the first one saying create an information kiosk or permanent display at a public place where the community can learn about the project, 10 points. And you can do up to 3 kiosks. So that means you can get 30 points just for doing 3 kiosks. So then you would just need 10 more points for education. And then finally, administration goals, you would need 20 points total. So something like the first line, maintain and submit your NWF online paperwork, you get 5 points. So to become a community wildlife habitat, the first step would be to go online and register your community. So there is a one-time fee of $99, and in exchange, you do get materials to help you promote the projects, and I'll go over what those are. You get access to a member-only resource area, and you work towards the requirements for certification. So the welcome packet that you get in exchange for the registration funds includes 2 of the National Wildlife Federation certified wildlife habitat signs that will be co-branded with New Jersey Audubon. You get a schoolyard habitat sign, a copy of Attracting Birds, Butterflies, and Other Backyard Wildlife book to give you different ideas, a packet of paper applications, and then some issues and tip sheets to hand out when you are educating your community about the program. And then you also get a community profile page on National Wildlife Federation's website. So on here, you can list different resources for your community. You can write up a description of your community. It shows you if you have a website or social media. So you can add as much information to your community profile page as you would like. And then you also get to manage and track your points on there. So you can, once you do an activity, you would go on to the web page and enter your points. And then it takes National Wildlife Federation, I think they say about 2 to 3 weeks to go through the points and then to approve or deny them. So it's a fairly quick turnover rate. And then again, you can add some photos and describe the events that you are hosting. So the picture on the right is showing Girl Scouts planting trees. And then the resource list, the resource center is really helpful. There's templates on there for creating brochures. So you would just, put in your information on the brochure that's already partially created. There's information sheets that you could print out and give to folks throughout your community. There's webinars to watch and a lot of different information. So a lot of great resources there at your fingertips to help you with your certification goals. And then there's also an educational shop where you can order educational materials to be mailed to you. So it does cost money to get them shipped, So you're just paying for shipping, you're not paying for the actual materials. And then there's a really active Facebook group where communities communicate and they talk about different events that they're offering or asking questions. So a very active community that help each other, answer questions and things like that. So again, in New Jersey, we have 5 certified community wildlife habitats. So Cape Island, Montclair, High Bridge, Lambertville, and Cherry Hill. And then we have 17 registered, so 17 communities working towards the goal of certification. So if you live in any of these towns and you have a garden or feed the birds and have a bird bath and you certify, then you'll help them reach the certification as a community faster. And so that, we have quite a few registered communities, and Kylie will talk about Mendum's process in just a minute. So one of the goals of getting communities to become certified is because then habitats get to be more connected. And once habitats are more connected, then the survival rate of wildlife increases. So if you have a certified wildlife habitat and your neighbor does and their neighbor does, you're connecting habitat, you're providing movement corridors for wildlife, and again, increasing their chances of survival. And there's plenty of benefits for communities. You get to know your local neighbors and businesses. Community involvement increases. In Florida, they were able to reestablish an endangered butterfly species. Certification gave residents a distinct increase in their quality of life. And in Tennessee, they raised over $30,000 in grant money to build an outdoor classroom. So again, to become an individual certified wildlife habitat, you have to provide 3 sources of food, 1 source of water, 2 sources of cover, 2 places to raise young and use sustainable practices. It's an easy 5-minute self-guided online application that's cost-friendly. You provide much necessary resources for pollinators, songbirds, and other wildlife. You can certify a whole community, and you support 2 nonprofits by helping us spread the word about gardening for wildlife. There's my contact information. So if anyone has any questions, garden@njaudubon.org. So fairly easy to remember. And then our website and the National Wildlife Federation's website for certifying if you're interested. So I will go ahead and stop sharing. And then,
Thank you, Kristen. That was wonderful. A lot of information. I just put this in the chat, but if anybody has questions, you can keep putting them in the chat. And once Kylie's finished, we will start reviewing all the questions for everybody. So we will monitor that as we go. And go ahead, Kylie.
Sorry, my mute button disappeared when I started sharing. Hello, everyone. My name is Kylie Valen, and I'm a member of the Mendum Township Environmental Commission. And I've only been a member about 2 years. And when I joined, the chair wanted to look at various wildlife certification schemes for the town. And I was very interested already in native plants. And I attended a webinar from Marianne Borge detailing how Lambertville completed their certification with National Wildlife Federation back in 2019 and was really inspired to register Mendum. So Mendum Township and now also with Mendum Borough, who joined us, are working to certify through the Community Wildlife Habitat Program in partnership with National Wildlife Federation and New Jersey Audubon, aiming to make Mendums greener and more wildlife friendly while educating our community and our residents, and encouraging homeowners to use best management practices, as Kristen mentioned, mainly using native plants and avoiding pesticides. So we registered in November 2021. We originally, just as Mendum Township, needed 150 points, but later we joined with our neighbors, Mendum Borough, for a combined total of 175 points. Oops. So to get municipal support, I was already a member of the Environmental Commission, so we had their support. And I gave a formal presentation to the township committee and also received the backing of their full support. So they covered the cost of our $99 application fee. And eventually we spent about $200 on brochures. And they also gave the Environmental Commission $500 later that we could use in a demonstration garden. The town also helped us with promotion of events. So they have a town Facebook page as well as an email newsletter. And so they would always promote our events as well, and gave us approval of a site for our demonstration garden. And so what's in it for Mendum is basically in building community, getting to meet our neighbors, educating residents, and empowering local action, generating good publicity. So we've had a number of articles in the local paper. It's good for property values and businesses, providing that necessary habitat for wildlife and beautifying our community, and also providing defenses against flooding. Some of our area is called Brookside. It is near creeks and streams, and native plants really provide good stormwater buffer. So in terms of getting the message out, this is probably the most important piece for registering but getting people to know what you're doing so they can actually join your effort. We create an Instagram and a Facebook page, and that was kind of our soft launch even before I announced it to promoted it to the town. And then I posted from those Facebook groups to local town groups in order to gain followers to those pages, just to raise interest in what we are doing. We also did a press release to announce the project in April, and we've had many others. Everything we do, I do a press release. The local editor loves us, loves writing about us. So we've had about 5 or so articles with photos. She comes to all our events. We created branding, and so the logo you saw at the beginning was actually drawn by one of our student representatives on the Environmental Commission. I showed her a page with some New Jersey native plants and told her to pick a few, specifically highlighting the violet because that's our state flower, and she drew that great logo. She also helped us create a great brochure, which inside has a checklist for how to certify, and also has information for residents for why we're doing this and why it's important for them to certify. Then we had planned our kickoff event. We were already going to be part of the Great Swamp Watershed Association's 2nd annual native plant sale. We're one of 15 municipalities that joined that project. So that was easy for us to promote that, as well as promoting this when people came to pick up their plants. And we also had a webinar with Marianne Borge, who I asked to do one on gardens with buzz. So she talked about specific relations between pollinators and plants, and then we could talk about our project some more. And one of the major accomplishments we did is I wanted to create a demonstration garden so residents could actually see what native plants would look like in their yard, because a lot of misconceptions about native plants are that they're messy, don't look nice. So we really wanted to make it easy for residents to see. So we chose a high traffic area. You can't see from this photo, but behind the garden to the other side is a playground. So it's very highly trafficked by a lot of families coming to the playground. Behind the garden on the other side is a playing field. So we thought it'd be a great site, and the town agreed that we could do a small garden. It was 10 by 12 feet. And like I said, we had $500 from the town already allocated. So we knew we could do at least get most of the plants in, but we applied for and won an ANJEC grant, which helped us make our demonstration garden even better. So we planted it May 28th with both Environmental Commission volunteers and residents. So we got a few residents to come out and help us. And you can see the ANJEC grant helped us add a rock border, helped us get the shrubs, got that bluebird house, which one of our partners was Wild Birds Unlimited in Denville. So there already are bluebirds nesting in there. They came about a week after we put it up. So that really helped us just increase the amount of what we could do. And then in terms of getting the word out again, we had a ribbon cutting ceremony, which we advertised to the general public again in the paper and getting recognized. We had this on June 25th. And to my surprise, we had member, our local state senator, you can see Senator Bucco on the right, and our local representative, Ora Dunn, and I think Christian Baracco on the left as well, came. We had no idea they were coming, and they came and recognized this with a proclamation for the Environmental Commission and said they were very much in support of what we are doing. And so I will hold them to task and remind them of that when legislation comes up, that they should support. They already have for some measures, but there is one bill currently about finally getting a do not plant list in New Jersey. And so I made sure that was on their radar, and I will be reminding them of their support as well. And as of today, we have 49 individual properties, one school, one town property, that's this garden, and one business, a church recently registered, and a nature preserve. So we have a total of 67 points. So we're on our way. And for more information, like us on Facebook, we are the Nature of Mendum. That's the name of our project. And on Instagram, we are Sustainable Mendum. So that's our wider Instagram that we had before the project. So we also publish things about our. And in terms of future plans, we have an extra $300 in our grant that I put in for an educational event and native plant giveaway in the fall. So I'm planning right now to do a garden tour at my house and working with hopefully Toad Shade and the New Jersey Native Plant Society to give away plants to the people who come first, and then also to have some for sale for others. And next steps, I want to reach out to schools. And we actually don't need to do any of these things in terms of future plans. In terms of our points, I should say we've already completed all of our education and outreach points with everything that we've done. So really, we just want to do these so we can continue doing good work, but also to continue spreading the message, because the hard work is just making sure residents are aware and, eventually getting to the, property certified. So reaching out to the schools, we only have one school that was already certified. So they were certified before this project, and that is in Mendum Borough. So I want to reach out to the local township schools. I really want to work with the town on ordinances and actually looking at what our ordinances say. Our neighbors in Morris Township recently passed an ordinance strongly recommending that any plantings on town property use native plants, and certainly not any from the New Jersey invasive species do not plant list. So just seeing if we can do something like that in town. And our municipal building is being renovated and next year. So that was my original spot for the native plant garden, but since it's undergoing renovation, I would really like to work with the town to build that into the design, to have another demonstration garden. Okay, and with that, I will stop sharing, and that is what we have done. Happy to take any questions.
Kylie and Kristen, wow, was all I can say is wow. And I knew a lot of this, and I'm sure other people did, but this is very impressive and very inspiring, I'm sure, to many of our environmental commissions. So I'm going to read some of the questions, and then if Sheila and Cheryl can help keep an eye out in case anybody wants to actually speak to Kylie or Kristen. Stanley asked a question about individual lots or parks and large sites. So Stanley, I think that was answered in that any individual spot could be certified, but then you can work on getting community certification, which sounds wonderful. Sophie is asking, is there an official list of native plants that because she's saying that in her municipality, people are saying that they're weeds, and we know we've all heard that about how they don't look good, but would you send people to the Native Plant Society of New Jersey for those kind of lists?
Yeah, so that's where I send people to, Native Plant Society New Jersey, and you can look up native plant lists by county. So it's even more specific than just our state. You can look it up by county. Their lists have both native and invasive non-natives on there. So you just have to look at the column to, make sure. I just like to point that out, because if you do click on the list and you're, reading the list and don't realize that there's a column for native or non-native.
Right.
Yeah, so just make sure you're reading the whole spreadsheet.
Of course, we want to encourage native wherever possible. Sometimes it may be non-native, but at least not invasive. So the invasives you definitely want to 100% stay away from. and as much as possible, plant real natives, because that's what the wildlife and the pollinators all need. So Gina
The other
wanted to know,
website- I just
yeah.
saw the other website that I found really helpful in addition to the Native Plant Society is Jersey Friendly Yards. It's at
Yes.
jerseyyards.org. They have an excellent database that I use basically to look up any plant. It tells you, you can search by characteristics. So if you just have shade, or you can weed out the invasives. They do list invasives, but you can say just New Jersey natives only.
Right.
And they also have an interactive tool if you're looking to plan your yard. So
Correct. There's a lot of, and yes, exactly. I see Bob and Mary Beth had asked us about where to find a list of invasives. And, oh no, maybe, well, I'm sure, maybe it wasn't Bob and Mary Beth. Anyway, somebody asked about that, and that would be, you can go to the invasive species strike force. So we will share some of these, we will share these websites with you either in the chat or certainly, oh, here, Sheila's already got the Jersey Friendly Yards is up there. So she's working on that. Thank you, Sheila. So does National Wildlife Foundation, sorry, I'm going back up, have a toolkit for communities to promote certification? That's sort of what you were showing us, I think, on their website, right?
Yeah, they have a lot of different resources available to help you with encouraging folks to become certified. I don't know if Kylie wants to speak more directly about that.
yeah, they provide some of the slides you shared, I've used in presentations. When I was presented to the town. They had a template for a brochure that we took and just redesigned and made our own, but they have a lot of great resources there.
Okay, so if people have questions about a certain activity or help with changing an ordinance, I can say about the ordinance issue that ANJAC indeed has a lot of sample ordinances like the one that Morris Township used, and you could certainly email ANJAC for some assistance with model ordinances to get you started if that's where you're going. But I assume that then the National Wildlife or NJ Audubon would be around to help you if you have any specific questions about your project as you're moving forward.
Yep.
Who is assigned to maintain the gardens, volunteers or town professionals, or how does that work? I don't know, Kristen, Kylie, yeah.
Yeah, for us, that basically the first year is really watering. The good thing about native plants is next year, hopefully we shouldn't need to maintain it so much. We did sheet mulching, so to prepare the site about a month before. So that has really, I've hardly needed to do any weeding. There's been a few little pieces of grass, but hardly anything. It's mainly been watering this summer, and that's been the Environmental Commission volunteers have just kind of taken a roster of weekly watering, so.
Good. And I assume once it's established, you still would have somebody checking on it every now and then just to make sure nothing was going wrong. But
yeah,
okay.
And filling our brochure display. I forgot to mention we have a underneath our sign. I have a brochure display, so all that's there. And last time I checked, there were hardly any left, so that's good.
That's great. So Dan had asked us, how can you help environmental commissions deal with municipal code enforcers or other things who are really not familiar with this whole native habitat and who, as we know, say they're messy or they're weeds or they're, it sort of becomes a relationship building situation, I know, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about education and, just sharing all this information about how important natives are and what actually is the definition of a weed. It really depends on who you ask and, why it's important for supporting wildlife and especially our pollinators and songbirds. So yeah, it's really just about education and hopefully changing people's mindset. So instead of seeing, a messy field, they see a beautiful wildflower meadow with all the butterflies and other pollinators, nectaring and getting the resources that they need. So it can take some time, but that's why environmental commissions are, super important for our towns so that they can do that education and try and change ordinances in their towns to make them more wildlife friendly.
Yeah, I mean, I know we have people call us and email us that their HOA or their neighborhood is forcing them to mow their lawn, and when they're trying to, so again, I think it becomes a relationship building and slow education, and you know, unfortunately, which is what we find environmental commissions get very good at this, because you guys are boots on the ground, and you got to know the players in your town. And, you know, nothing better than having State Senator Bucco come to your ribbon cutting of your garden. And then who's going to say that that's, you know, something you should be mowing down? So, you know, I think Kylie's strategy of having everything be in the newspaper the minute it happens is another great way. Getting kids involved is also a great way to do it. The more publicity
Right.
you get for your project, the more hard it's going to be for them to argue with you about your weeds, if you will. Not that I think
Yes.
they're weeds.
Yeah, and some folks have shared that having the sign, the certified wildlife habitat sign, or there's other certifications as well. You know, obviously I'm promoting the one that I work for, but having a sign specifically saying this is wildlife habitat can also somewhat change people's minds, just being like, oh, okay, I guess they're not lazy, they're providing habitat. So it's not saying that's gonna, you know, solve all the issues, but some folks have said that that has helped with neighbors.
Yes, a couple of people have shared that Biota of North America is a great website, and Mark has said that the State Forest Service nursery sells native seedlings, trees and shrubs. You have to buy a lot of them, but he's found that they've had good success. So that's great for everybody to know about. Yeah, Ben had asked, he recalled that a New Jersey Assembly person was proposing a law to incentivize utilities to engage sustainable practices on the utility byways. Do we know anything about that?
I don't.
That's
That's really interesting. I know sorry, Dan, I forget which roadway it is, but there is near Atlantic City, there was you know, a partnership where the roadways were planted in wildflowers for pollinator habitat. So there are initiatives out there like that.
yeah, right. Mary had asked about, she's in Ocean Township, and she said they have a lot of deer that come into residential properties and eat the foliage. Is there a way to have a wildlife habitat without increasing the deer damage, the deer doing damage?
Yeah, so I, like I said, I manage property owned by New Jersey Audubon, and I planted a few native garden beds around the property, and I specifically looked at deer resistant plants. Deer resistant is always in quotes because it might not, you know, the deer might not eat them here, but my neighbor's yard, they might eat them. So, but I've had really good success with my plants here. The only one that's been eaten a lot is echinacea, but other than that, it's really the groundhogs that are causing me the most problem. But I knew I wasn't going to put up a fence. We are a nature preserve, so there's so a question just popped up, which New Jersey Audubon property do I manage? It's called the Scudder Preserve in Atlantic Highlands, which is in Monmouth County. And so we are 90 acres, and then our property neighbors Huber Woods, which is a Monmouth County park system. And so there's hundreds of acres here, tons and tons of deer. And I knew I wasn't going to put up fencing because that's just kind of crazy because it's a nature preserve. So I specifically looked up plants that are supposed to be deer resistant. Again, it's not always foolproof, but I have had good success with the plants that I chose, that native plants that are, you know, deer resistant.
That's great. Again, I think we've all may have already found that some things that are supposed to be deer resistant are not really. And then, then you plant something else and they really don't go near it. So it becomes a little bit of a trial and error, and maybe it depends on your area, but Ocean Township is not too far from Atlantic Highlands. So maybe Kristen can share her secrets with you.
I just posted our garden design in the chat.
Right.
With it, all of those plants are deer resistant. And I'll just say that, you know, when they first went in a few weeks, some of them were nibbled, mainly the shrubs, but you know, everything will come back and some will just bloom better and bigger next year. I mean, the main things that were nibbled was the summer sweet and the New Jersey tea a little bit, the button bush, but and the asters a little bit, and the goldenrod. But you know, I mean, milkweed they don't touch. I mean, butterfly weed they don't touch any of that. The blue false indigo and the
I have cardinal flower, iris, blue flag,
Beard tongue, they don't touch at all.
beard tongue, yeah.
Black-eyed Susan, they don't touch as much. So yeah, there's a lot that, you know, you can work with. And so we had enough blooms on the grass, the switchgrass, they don't touch. So
Mhm.
That's great. Oh, good. Look, it's 7:58 and we have almost answered all the questions. Oh, of course, somebody asked more now. Come on, guys. Okay, Sheila found the bill to encourage pollinator habitat and the rights of way of public utilities. So we can check on that and let you all know what the status is, but since it's still not an official law, so I guess it hasn't moved, but we can definitely check and let you know. And yes, I really, Kylie and Kristen, I think it's been wonderful. I think all of our attendees have been thrilled with your information and your knowledge, and I shared your emails in the chat, so hopefully, and we will share the recording and we will share the chat, as well as if you ladies wouldn't mind sending me your presentations, we can put them on our website as well to share with the
Sure.
group. So thank you again. Does anybody have any other questions?
I'll just say finally, if any environmental commissions that are watching, you know, are interested in the program, you know, encourage your other members to watch the recording. And then if you would like me to, you know, log into one of your meetings to answer any further questions, I'm happy to do that. And also, if your community does choose to do this program, the Community Wildlife Habitat Program, I do offer a free 45-minute presentation, virtual presentation for your community members to teach them about the Certified Wildlife Habitat Program. So going further into detail about food, water, cover, places to raise young. And then you can earn points from the presentation that I give. So Kylie, we still need to schedule that. I see Claire from Alamucci is on here as well. So need to schedule that with my few of the registered communities, but yeah, I'm here to help and you know, offer any help that I can. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it and hope to connect with all of you in the future.
Yes, I already see somebody from Mount Laurel is saying they're interested in the program. I told her to reach out to you, so thank you.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it, ladies, and thank you to all the NJEC staff, and we will see you all in October will be our next roundtable. So have a good day, everybody. Happy summer.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.